lovely viewers, and welcome to my 900 sub special. I am your host, RiotRWBY. Thanks for all the support over the years, it's been an insane ride. I can't believe I'm almost at 1,000 even. I wonder if people remember me giving my husbando preferences on stream. Vega from Street Fighter, hot. Alucard from Castlevania series, hot. Brand from Wuthering Waves, classy gentleman. But I don't really recall talking about my childhood crushes. Well, my lovely viewers, you voted for it, so now here it is. Time to dive into deeply embarrassing crushes that my younger self had. The farthest back in my memories I can go is age 4, but age 5 is when I can recall more things with more accuracy. And that's the age where I can remember having a crush on a fictional character for the first time in my life, and that was Steven Stone from Pokemon. Oh wait, not this Steven. This Steven. See, my dad had gotten me a pink DS Lite for my 5th birthday, along with some games he thought I would enjoy, and one of these games was Pokemon Emerald. Yep, it was Papa Riot that got me into gaming, and this is where my love for Pokemon began. But at that time in my life, I had no concept of franchises, so Pokemon to me was just a game. I had no idea about any anime at all. Ash Ketchum? Who was that? Steven to me was just a very pixelated man, only took up one square on my DS screen. Around 90% of the time he was in the game. That was enough for me. I was smitten with this man. He seemed so cool, so mysterious, so dapperly dressed. And he liked rocks. At 5 years old, I was fascinated with picking up pretty rocks off the ground, and seeing someone who expressed interest in something that I liked was enough for me. I was like, can we break rocks together forever? So I played through Emerald, loved it, and at the end of it all, I beat Steven in a random cave, which was kinda strange to me, since I thought he was going to be someone more important. And then someone told me that Steven was actually the champion in other versions of the game. And I was like, there are other versions of this game? So I did what any 5-year-old would do under these circumstances. I got my dad to buy me Pokemon Sapphire, only because I wanted to see Steven as the champion, the strongest trainer there was. When Gen 3 got a remake in the form of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, I can't deny my heart was set aflutter by his redesign, and because my player character was able to take a ride with him on a Latios. Side note, Steven is the heir to the Devon Corporation, so you could say at age 5, I was already gunning to be the CEO's wife. And I continued to go for that position with this next childhood crush I can remember. Style Savvy was a game I also played on that pink DS, but instead of battling monsters, I was dressing ladies to look and feel their best. As an up-and-coming fashion designer who just inherited a store from her mentor, it was a really fun game series for me to play growing up. Well, there's really not much story other than that in the original game, but there was someone that got a lot of preteen girls' heads turning, including my own. Meet Dominic, the identity of the mysterious benefactor who funds your new store. He is handsome, sharply dressed, a bit aloof and mysterious, but despite his confident-looking appearance and his business sense, the game's characters consider him a bit of a recluse, rarely making public appearances. And Dominic also admits that he's not one to socialize either, but as the game continues, and he interacts with the female main character more, he goes out to socialize more just for her, offering support and high praise. The gap moe with this guy is off the charts. Despite him looking like a supermodel, he's also very bashful, seemingly asking his butler to ask the female main character where she would like to go for a date. And there's 3 instances where Dominic does consider trying to take her home in his car. But he's like, oh, no, I'm too embarrassed, I changed my mind, good night. Sounds like a budding love story between an introverted businessman and an extroverted fashion designer. But sadly, this is a dress-up game, not a dating game. Even the wiki has to specify that you can't date Dominic, which made all the preteen girls playing this game very sad. The desire to obtain what is unobtainable. The fancying for the sharply dressed older men continued, although more in a fantasy sense, with the show Winx Club. I thought that there wouldn't be any more peak shows than this, and peak husbando material too. The first one that caught my attention was Professor Avalon, from the 1-hour Nickelodeon special that was based on a portion of Season 2, The Shadow Phoenix. He immediately caught my attention, not just because he had glowing angel-esque wings, Avalon just oozed seasoned veteran coolness. And he seemed like such a gentleman too. I was entirely on Bloom's side for the majority of the special, seemingly wanting to help the main character Bloom discover more about her past. I thought her boyfriend Sky was being an idiot. I was like, stop getting all up in her personal business. Avalon's just trying to help, it's not a big deal, stop being so stupid. As it turns out though, the new professor was actually a Dark Phoenix skeleton man in disguise. And I was like, dang, we were the idiots. The sharply dressed, charismatic professor was actually the bad guy. My heart was shattered. I also loved Helia from the same show, but unlike Avalon, he didn't turn out to be a mastermind in disguise, and instead joined the specialist to fight against evil. I loved how he grew to be so sweet to Flora. He's a gentleman, he's an artist, and Flora is a really lucky lady. Then, I watched a show that completely changed my tune on fictional men. Bakugan Battle Brawlers was a show that made up a large part of my preteen years. It was a show about kids fighting with cards and metal balls that changed into giant monsters from another planet. I didn't start taking any notice of the men in the show until the second season, New Vestroia. It's my favorite of the seasons that exist for this iteration of Bakugan, and some part of me thinks that it has to do with the man who defined my taste for a while, and probably still kinda does, Spectra, and by God was he so hot. If anyone's wondering why I love long blonde hair on fictional men, this guy is why. He started it all, with one of the coolest designs I had ever seen up until that point. The swooping hair, the red jacket, with the fur lining, the mask, combined with the angst of family drama and trying to create the strongest Bakugan to defeat his adversaries, and a voice that I would let whisper sweet nothings into my ear. And when I saw his face reveal for the first time with those beautiful blue eyes, I was like, damn Mira, can I be your sister-in-law?
Please let me marry your brother.
Also, when he came back in the 4th season, with a new sleek black look, I was over the moon. Speaking of the 4th season, I also really liked Wiseman, the main antagonist, and not necessarily for the most wholesome reasons. I liked his demeanor, his commanding presence, his playfulness when it came to messing with the heroes of the story, and his villainy. I'm gonna be honest, if I was in Bakugan, I would have probably been a simped henchman for him, being like to the other evil Bakugan, no, you cannot talk to Master Wiseman like that. Later on in the season, it was revealed he was a Bakugan taking the physical form of someone else, and my hormonal teenage brain immediately defaulted to, ooh, there's 2 of them. I will now fantasize about dating the same guy twice, at the same time. For a guy with a helmet that made him look like a Cyclops, Wiseman just did it for me. It helped he also had a Bakugan throwing pose that showed off his butt. In the same show, I also became smitten with Shun, but not at first. In the seasons following the first one, Shun got a little older, a little wiser, a little angstier. I especially loved his new story look, with the long green jacket, the long fingerless gloves. So handsome! Shun also gets bonus points for being a ninja. Now to go into my first live-action crush in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That being Thor. What can I say? The actor is quite good looking. I mean, look at Chris Hemsworth. He's built like a sculpture. A very good exposure to Marvel Comics Thor, if you know what I mean. As the MCU was my first exposure to the character, along with the rest of the Avengers. Even now, when I think of Thor, I think of the MCU version. In addition to the actor looking really handsome and cool, Thor was just awesome to me. He had this smooth, buttery accent. He could fly and shoot lightning. And even though Thor started off as kind of a jerk, Thor, I think, had some of the best character development in the MCU. He became a badass. And that just made him even hotter, to both myself and to Mama Riot. You could say that Thor was a generational crush in this kitty's family. This next one I almost forgot to put in the video for some inexplicable reason. But I can recall when I was a teenager wanting to try out Fire Emblem. I knew almost absolutely nothing about the series aside from it was a tactical RPG and it had romance options. At the time, the series had come out with Fire Emblem Fates. One game split into 2 because the storage was too much to handle for the 3DS, so I decided to choose which version I would get based on how attractive the main cast looked. I ended up picking the Nor route, which was Conquest, because the designs of the cast looked infinitely more appealing with a gothic medieval aesthetic, and the 2 guys in front looked like primetime love interests, especially the guy right next to the playable main character, Xander. He gave serious cool knight vibes. And I was like, yeah, that's the guy I want to date in this game. Sadly, to my disappointment, most of the characters on the covers of both games are the player character's siblings, biological or adopted, with Xander being Corinne's older brother that she's been raised alongside with since childhood.
How could this happen to me?
My innocent brain thought that meant he and the rest of the siblings were off limits, as I hadn't encountered that romantic prospect in a video game before. When I did eventually figure that out, I went back to start up a new game, but found myself unable to go through with it because I like Xander that much. It felt like I would be doing him wrong, and I felt super naughty for thinking about it. Luckily, Fire Emblem Heroes was there to save me from this self-imposed moral quandary, where I could hang out with him as an unnamed main character and check him out in his summer skin, where he fights with an inflatable dolphin. Nice. Stating the obvious, I really love Yu-Gi-Oh! I got into it when I was around 15 or so with Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, and I've loved it ever since. Watching all of the seasons up to Reigns, and still playing the card game IRL to this day. The crushes were the one thing that was consistent for me throughout these seasons. as I like the darker skinned jocks. That being Axel Brody from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Alito from Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, and Go Onizuka from Yu-Gi-Oh! Reigns. What can I say? Guys in card game shows that look like they could body slam their opponent after reducing their life points to 0 create an appealing dichotomy for me, where I was like, oh my, this is testosterone-fueled Yu-Gi-Oh! And I love it. Well, it wasn't just that they were attractive, they were all pretty neat characters in their own right. Axel Brody had this mysterious outdoorsman vibe to him, with a tragic bad story that fits morbidly well into the archetype he plays. And he has a dual disc that turns into a gun that shoots cards. Why? Because this is a card game show, goddammit. He looks super cool while doing it. Then there's Alito from Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal, who works out even while giving an evil monologue. His backstory sounding like one of those weird isekai animes. Killed as a Roman gladiator, reborn as a Dark Emperor. Alito was a friendlier Barian too, having a very endearing rivalry with the main character. He was bad guy, but not bad guy. And then there's Go Onizuka in Yu-Gi-Oh! Reigns. Oh, sweet Go. I don't know who decided to do this to you, but whoever it was, I hope they never wrote anything ever again. Pre-character assassination, he actually was pretty attractive, and not just cause he looked like he could bench press me. Go was basically the Yu-Gi-Oh! Equivalent of a WWE wrestler, turning all of his duels into an entertaining spectacle. He even did a heel turn with a new costume just because the villain called him a villain. Just rolling with it cause he could. Man could make me smile, he was entertaining, he had a killer bod, great with kids, truly the full package. Go had me smitten, what can I say? Now for the last childhood crush I can remember. All by himself at the end of the video. It's Gundam Tanaka from Danganronpa 2 Goodbye Despair, the ultimate breeder of animals at Hope's Peak Academy. He is, for all intensive purposes, a try-hard edgelord. A LARPer who roleplays as a half-angel, half-demon, inflicted with an unbreakable curse with the 4 dark devas of destruction by his side. While he has these delusions of grandeur, I found them charming, just like Sonya in the game, with a gap way of looking like a crazy person while being super tender towards all animals, with a heroic and kind soul underneath. In the long string of bodies the Danganronpa series is piled up, Gundams particularly hit me in right the emotional kisser, as he and another student had fought to the death just so the rest of the class could get out of a prison, with no food or water, so they were all just slowly starving to death. Monokuma wouldn't remove them from this prison unless a murder happened, so he even laughed, saying he would play the villain until his very last breath. A truly kind soul underneath all that artificial angst. Oh man, such a cool and attractive character. It was officially the last childhood crush I can remember. Feel free to post your childhood crushes in the comment section down below. Call me a curious cat in that regard. So, like, sub, share if you fancy. And with that, RiotRWBY is signing out.